Hello everyone, welcome to the post-game show. This is going to be a little bit of a special post-game show as I'm covering two games. So the first game was the Washington-Philly game, and that game was a little bit back and forth, and of course you had the Carson Wentz comeback at the end. And then you go into this game against the Dallas Cowboys, and keep in mind the Dallas Cowboys just blew us out the last time we played. So there is definitely a lot of nervous feeling, to be honest, to put it lightly. And the Eagles ended up pulling out a win. Now we're going to first talk about some of the concerns that I have before we jump into some of the good. So one of my first concerns is the amount of injuries that happened in this game. Granted, the Cowboys did get some injuries. However, there were a few Eagles who were banged up. Granted, some of them did come into the game, but still you had Zach Ertz, you had Jalen Mills, you had Ronald Darby, Fletcher Cox at one point. Just all these different Eagles were taken out of the game at one point due to being pretty banged up. So definitely one thing to look for when throughout the week is their status through practice. If they're did not participate or questionable, whatever, that's definitely something that I would be looking at. The other thing is defense did play a bend, don't break game, particularly in the second half. So the Eagles did kind of give up a big play here and there, but they ultimately did keep Dallas from ever touching the end zone, which is a good thing. And the secondary had some good moments here too. Granted, there were a lot of really worrying moments with the secondary where there were plays where if the Dallas receiver had not dropped a really easy catch, then the Cowboys would have scored. So there's definitely that to consider, and that should be something that's very worrying going forward. But for now, there was some solid moments in that defensive secondary, and the front trenches on both sides of the Eagles' ball did a solid job this game, so that's pretty good. Carson Wentz had a pretty good game as well. He was able to keep the chains going, and yeah, he had a good game. Miles Sanders had a really good game as well. He's sort of like coming into his own, and it's going to be really exciting to see what he does for Philly years to come, as well as Greg Ward Jr. He was on the practice squad pretty much most of the season, and these last few weeks he's actually really started to impress me, especially this week. So it's going to be really exciting to see him. Now, as for what's coming up, they do play the Giants. This game, I know a lot of people are going to be writing it off as an easy win. However, I don't think that should be the case here, because this is a game, more than likely Eli Manning's last game. Wait, I think Daniel Jones is back this week. Excuse me. But regardless, I think what the point I'm going to try to make here is that the Giants are going to want to play the role of spoiler, and there's nothing better than to spoil your chances of your divisional opponent from making the playoffs. There's nothing better than spoiling the chances of a divisional rival making the playoffs. Excuse me there. That sentence makes much more sense. As for the Cowboys, they have to beat Washington next week, which is probably a high probability, and they also have to watch us lose, so we definitely are not in the clearing yet. Some things to look for in the Giants game is definitely, again, how the injuries will impact the Eagles, as well as there are some key things that the Eagles need to do to pull ahead. And the Eagles have seemed to have adjusted their offense in the last 2 weeks, starting with the second half of the Giants game where they're running some like screens and that sort of thing, and that's definitely been able to open up the Eagles' offense a little bit. So I think that they're probably going to keep on continuing that trend. As far as my mood right now, I would say I am still. A few weeks ago, I was pretty pessimistic, but I think at best right now I am cautiously optimistic because the Eagles are in the driver's seat, but keep in mind they could blow this, okay? There's still the chance of that. They could completely overlook their opponent, or the Giants could just come out and just completely pull out an upset. So there's definitely still that factored in. And then you also have to consider the fact that with how good the NFC is right now, there is a high chance that like I said, like for several weeks right now, the winner of this division is more than likely going to get bounced out of the first round of the playoffs. Granted, playoffs are playoffs, and anything can happen in them, and you should be thankful for your team even getting in the playoffs, but still, there's that to be considered. And also in other news, Darren Sproles is retiring, so I think that's going to open up a slot on the running back committee sometime in the offseason. That's for later news. As for other things I've noticed in the game, Dak's throwing was a little bit off, and especially on certain key plays. It just felt like he was forcing the ball. I do know that he is hurt, so yeah. And the Eagles did a good job of stuffing Zeke for the most part. I know he got a few big plays in the second half, but yeah, bend, don't break. Fletcher Cox was immediately when he came into the game after being sidelined for a little bit with that injury. He forced a fumble, which was really good. So yeah. So overall, this was a pretty good statement win for the Eagles, though. We have to hold our breath still, okay? Or three really good statement wins from the Eagles in a row. Okay, one of them wasn't very good, but it was a good comeback. But you get the idea. So I'm still gonna hold my breath before I say anything and just see how things go. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for sort of watching this really quick one, and I hope you all have a great day.